Jake Wolf is someone I've followed for a while on Instagram, so I was confident I was inviting a bird of a similar feather on the show. We both love to shop, explore, discover, and obsess over product. We get into the weeds into the state of fashion, including trends, designers switching companies like pro athletes do teams, and we also talk about what he'd like to see more of in the near future. We later dive deep into his first of several upcoming collaborations that he has on the calendar for 2026, and you'll get first dibs if you start subscribing to his Substack, one of my favorite corners of the internet. I'm your host, Wesley Smith, and you're listening to the Standard H podcast. Yeah, thanks for the time. What kind of dog is this behind you?
He is a mix of a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And hopefully he keeps quiet during this because he can get a little antsy sometimes. And then I got a little guy here too.
Oh no, you got two.
Yeah.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Is
So
this a
he's the little
Chihuahua
guy.
mix?
Yeah, he's a Chihuahua mix. And then the big guy is a bunch of other stuff, but they're brothers.
Nice, man. So where do
Yeah.
we find you? Are you in New York City?
I am in New York City and this is my home.
This looks like a beautiful apartment.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It is, all credit to my girlfriend.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Yeah.
You take care of the clothes,
I
she does the house.
yeah, I pitch in where I can. I've made a couple of suggestions and choices, but
Yeah,
no, it's definitely her vision.
sweet. Well, I kind of
Yeah.
want to start off talking a little bit about just like style at large. It sort of seems like everything goes at the moment. Like you can kind
Mm.
of wear whatever you want. Like what do you think about that? Or do you feel the same way or no?
Yeah, no, totally. I think that it's kind of a cool period because like you said, there are no real pervasive like rules anymore. You can just, if you are a guy who likes skinny jeans right now and fancy yourself an Eddie boy, then there's product out there for you. There's a lot of vintage Saint Laurent and Dior Homme and stuff like that from that era. And there's like a whole contingent of guys who are down with that. If you're someone who's preppy and you want to wear all Ralph Lauren, then obviously there's that for you. And if you're someone who's into like Rick Owens and more avant-garde kind of fashion, then like, there's stuff, there's like and none of them are right or wrong,
Yeah.
or if you're into tailoring, like there are all these little pockets, and you can go really deep into all of them and just choose your own adventure. But I think it's a really exciting time to be into clothes because there is so much out there and so many different types of clothing out there at the end of the day that are available to explore and have fun with at the end of the day.
Yeah. How do you feel like this has affected trends?
I will say it's like harder to as someone who takes a lot of joy in this idea of like predicting trends and sort of seeing where the market is, like I still think that there is a sort of like core nucleus of of stuff that's happening in menswear that um changes from season to season, or like there are certain shoes or certain widths of pants or things like that. Like there is a certain group of people who are like attached to the way that the market is moving, and what is being shown on runways, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, like I think that you don't have to follow any of these trends if you don't want to. Like I said, you can choose your own adventure through it, and I think that that's something different as opposed to there being like there's no more monolithic culture when it comes to trends. So, um, yeah, I think that like having said that though, I still like I said, I still think there is a few trends out there that you can follow. It just is like if you don't feel like paying attention to them or caring about them, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, it's
You
kind of
know?
interesting. Yeah. I think on the other hand as well, I think because of the internet, namely social media, I would say that you don't have the regionalism that we used to either, right? Like
Sure.
people in New York used to look like New Yorkers, people in London used to look like people in London and Paris, likewise, LA, likewise. now everybody gets the information at the exact same time, so everybody ends up looking like everybody.
I think that that's true also, and I think to that point, like I do think that that makes trends, in some regard more widespread. I think you could
Yeah.
see in that way because if everyone, rather than there being like a New York look and an LA look and a London look and people following, what their immediate circles are doing in those
Hmm.
places,
Hmm.
if we all have access to the same information and everyone all of a sudden starts seeing, slim, low profile sneakers as what Dries Van Noten is putting on the runway this season, and that information gets disseminated across the world all at the same time, then you're going to start to see people in all these different places start wearing those things. And so these trends are actually, in that regard, a little bit more pervasive. So while trends are sort of harder to track from a industry-wide perspective, I do think that in some ways they are easier to spot just because of um, how widespread a trend can go very, very fast too. Like it becomes very obvious, if you look back at the last few years that people decided that wide jeans were now the thing to wear because you just all, over the course of a few months just saw people on Instagram and, I could see a person in Australia wearing wide jeans and be like, that guy looks cool and maybe I'll try wide jeans. And so now you have a guy in New York and a guy in Australia. And so the virality of trends is much faster and much more widespread, even if um, it's not as uh, monolithic in the sense that like the classic example of like Devil Wears Prada, that you're wearing that cerulean sweater because of the people in this room
Right.
kind of thing might not be as relevant anymore. But when things do take hold, they tend to take hold very, very fast and get disseminated very quickly.
Jacob Elordi notwithstanding. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
what are some of those folks that you would say are kind of the decision makers? You sort of alluded to that a moment ago when you're like, there are a few people, showing runway and such, but
Hmm.
what's that handful? It's not the Antwerp six or what is it, Antwerp seven, six? I can't remember.
Antwerp Six.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
six. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, the famous group of young designers from Belgium
Which I
who,
guess Dries,
came.
yeah, I mean, Dries in fairness was one of them. So
Yeah, it was part of that. Yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. So like, um, it's really interesting that you asked that. Like, who are the decision makers nowadays? And it's really hard, like, I've talked about before. I think when it comes to like celebrities, I do think that on the men's side, you know, Jacob Elordi is sort of a very um prime example of a guy who knows clothing to a certain extent. Obviously, he has a stylist he's working with, and he has brand alliances that are paid for, Bottega Veneta being one of them,
Sure.
and things like that. But um, he certainly is one of the very few celebrities that I think actually has the ability to shift what kinds of things guys are looking at, or really it's just like his overall aesthetic. I think he represents like uh a sort of modern mode of menswear dressing, which is sort of like quiet luxury, minimal, the row loafers, wide leg jeans, sort of slouchy sweater, big overcoat, sunglasses, like leather duffel bag, leather tote bag kind of thing that's like very, very modern and very 2026. Um, but sometimes I do wonder to myself, like, is that Jacob deciding that he wants to dress like this and then disseminating that to his, millions of fans out there? Or, is it in some regard like a bottom up situation where, guys in places like New York and Los Angeles were gravitating towards these brands, Jacob being tapped in the same way that I'm tapped into Instagram and these other places starts to see it. And then he started like buying these things because he saw it somewhere else,
Right.
and then, he just happens to be the sort of like widest funnel point for these kinds of things. Like he can spot things that are percolating on a micro level and then decide that he wants to wear those things, and then just by virtue of being as famous as he is can disseminate those amongst millions of people, and then that in turn causes a lot more guys to start dressing like that. So um I do think that the decision making is happening less on a top down level and more of a bottom up level because like you said, like everyone has access to the same information. And so, you're getting these smaller pockets of people in cities or elsewhere, gravitating towards something, like I mentioned before, like this idea of like Eddie boys, of guys who are reclaiming,
The
like the
skinny
Eddie
jean.
Slimane, the
Yeah.
skinny jean, Eddie
Yeah.
Slimane, Saint Laurent, Dior Homme look from, the early 2000s up
Yeah, I was gonna
until
say
about
2002. Yeah.
yeah, up until 2015 or whatever, whenever the peak of Eddie Saint Laurent was. And that didn't happen. It doesn't seem based on like some magazine or some celebrity deciding that all of a sudden was a thing. It was more like, just guys in New York deciding like, hey, people have been doing this wide leg jean thing for the last few years. Like maybe let's try and go back the other way. And,
Yeah.
this sort of revival of like indie rock in New York and other things like that. It's sort of just that's more of like a bottom up scenario. And I think that's more common in terms of how trends are happening these days, as opposed to it being this sort of like top down, I'm the decision maker. I've decided that all of a sudden we're all going to start wearing baggy jeans, or all of a sudden we're going to start wearing skinny jeans. There's more of a push and pull now between like what customers and people in cities or these small groups are doing. Runway designers see that, they put it on the runway, or maybe they put something on the runway and all of a sudden it changes the way that people think. Smaller, more influential groups start to gravitate towards it. So, it is more of like a symbiotic relationship now as opposed to just like a one-way street.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too, just designer related, that these folks are basically being, it's almost like they're trading people like baseball players, like going from one team to the next, and like which is fascinating when you start thinking about style and design also, because like what you can get away with at, say, YSL or Dior, you can't really do that at Ralph Lauren or vice versa, right? So like this wide leg
Yeah.
jean, it was just like a thought exercise I just thought of just now, of like, if Eddie's going to this brand and then he goes to that brand, like maybe that brand can't execute that because it's not in their history, but maybe that's why they do it, because they're trying to evolve. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's just all this like, the evolution of fashion is kind of interesting as well. But yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know.
totally. I think to what you were initially talking about, like this idea of like designer houses, trading designers,
Yeah, like this
like,
is a rebuilding year, like it's like, come on,
y-
guys, like
yeah, I mean, you saw that in the sort of interim between like, Alessandro Michele at
mhm,
Gucci and now
Gucci, yeah.
Demna at Gucci. And in between, there was sort of like, yeah, like a rebuilding period where it was like, we, don't really have someone at the helm who is like has a very strong vision. And so we're just going to sort of like bide our time until we can find what the next thing is. And now they have Demna at the helm. And
Mhm.
it is interesting, I mean, this has always been the case, I think, in high fashion, but, from, just my time in the industry, seeing how this does shape brands over the years, like Eddie going to YSL was a big deal. He changed the logo, he changed the stores, he was like, and then he went to Celine and sort of did that same, ran that playbook back. It's like Eddie has like, you sort of think about him like a football coach or something, and he's got like his
Yeah.
like playbook and he knows how to run this playbook. And so he's very like, when he shows up at a brand, like what things you can kind of expect. And
He's
similarly, I
he's
think
Phil
you can see
Jackson
that.
with the triangle offense, like
Yeah, yeah. Like he has this triangle offense, which is like minimal logo and like store design that's like very white. And I mean, like the Celine stores and the Saint Laurent stores look the same now because of Eddie. And I think Celine is now under Michael Ryder, who has obviously, used to work at Ralph Lauren. And so he's bringing like this sort of high fashion prep sensibility to Celine in the wake of like Eddie's kind of, rock star Los Angeles
Mhm.
skateboarder kind of thing. And now Michael Ryder is like a new perspective on it. And it is really interesting, just and I think, as a guy who's into sports and into other things, to like, it does sort of activate that same part of your brain where it's like, oh, like, they just signed this new player and now we're going to see like how the team looks under this new leadership.
Yeah.
Um, and it is kind of interesting to follow to see like how Celine, for example, has changed from Eddie to Michael Ryder, or how Bottega Veneta has changed over the last few years, or
For sure.
even on the women's wear side, like Matthew Blazy at Chanel now, seeing his vision for Chanel, which is like for the longest time was sort of one way, and now is like going in a new direction because of this guy. So like I don't spend like a ton of time like um in my personal life like I'm interested in it from like as like a fan and like as a casual viewer, even if like ultimately like I'm not the core shopper at any of these brands at the end
Right,
of the day.
sure. Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
same. Like I think it's just like the business of fashion, right? Like quite literally the
Hmm.
website
Hmm.
is an interesting read, I think, from time to time. Yeah, it is. I literally had to Google who was at YSL now, but it's Anthony Vaccarello, I think. Or
Zaccarello, yeah,
yeah,
he has his own vision too. It's just sort of
right.
like all black and
Yeah.
like flowy, and he's bringing back these like '80s power suits that have been
Yeah.
really popular, and this like oversized leather jacket and like with like and that look has really been really popular. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of fun to watch and see. But it is like there has been this like more fast-paced musical chairs thing happening in the fashion industry over the last few years that like again, like if you have stock in any of these companies, is like probably you think about it one way, but for just like a fan and a casual observer of it, is like hell yeah, like let's see what's next.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is even at the C-suite level, right? Like it's not even just
Yeah.
designers, it's CEOs that are running around too and getting traded and oh God, we had a down year, God forbid. So we
That
need
would
that
be interesting though, if you actually could trade designers. Like Demna got traded for Antonio Vaccarello.
right,
Like,
right. And it's like, well, he's got his contract, he's signed to a 10-year deal. Yeah, yeah. I think it'd be fascinating.
or the way they do it in soccer, where it's like you can like rent a designer for a year. It's like
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
yeah, that'd be fun.
I'm sure there's betting online as to who stays how long at whatever house, like I mean everything's now it seems
I'm
to be
sure
gambling.
before Matthew Blazy was appointed at Chanel, there was some prop bets going for sure about like who the next designer would be. Hope someone got rich off it.
Yeah, 100%. What is there any trend that you'd like to see more of or less of for that matter currently?
Um, it's hard to talk about. I walk around New York and I'm so hesitant and like stumbling over my words right now because it's like so fast. You can just
Yeah.
you either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become Unk, and like so like you walk downtown and you see like younger people than me. I'm 34, and so you see like the 18 to 24-year-old demo, sort of doing this like early 2000s kind of like mixed with modern streetwear, kind of like just kind of it's the first time in my life where I feel like I'm like I don't get it, you know,
Oh,
and
welcome home.
yeah, exactly, yeah, like I'm just like this definitely doesn't look good
Right.
to
Right.
my eye. But it's like, yeah, this sort of like, it feels very early 2000s influence kind of thing. So like, but
Hmm.
do I want to see less of it? Like, no, like, I mean, kids do your thing.
Yeah.
Um, I guess like the thing I do want to see more of, though, I will say, is just an emphasis, and it's been really cool to see over the last couple of years, like an emphasis on small independent designers and guys, as opposed to gravitating towards the obvious sources to buy their clothes. Like, I still wear, Madewell and J. Crew and Ralph Lauren. Like Ralph Lauren's my favorite brand of all time, but like
Yeah,
this
same.
this sort of um diving beneath that sort of obvious level of brands that are just sort of like out there and about naturally, and being like, oh, like let me go to this independent store in Brooklyn like Space and see like, oh, he has this brand called Slowbo, that's this guy named Ramon who lives in Queens and makes clothes by himself in New York, and like that's and so the shirt is $400, and as opposed to spending $900 on a Celine shirt that they made 1,000 of. I'm gonna like spend $400 on a shirt from this guy Ramon, who I can like DM on Instagram and know him, and he's doing things to the highest possible level of quality. Or so like that is cool to see. And then related to that is you look at a brand like Dana Lee Brown, where there's just sort of radical transparency in the way that the clothes are made, from the farms to the cotton. Like you go on a product page and it's not just like, here's our flannel shirt. It's here's our flannel shirt, and next to it, beneath the drop down of like the sizing and where you can pick the sizing and the price, is like, we got the cotton from this place and it was sewn here and it was dyed here, and it was like, so I think that that's becoming more prevalent. And I think the sort of godfather of this kind of movement would be Evan Kenori. Um,
Not Everlane.
and yeah. No, not Everlane as much. Like I know that they have like they're the sort of like poster of like sort of startup-y transparency kind of view. But in terms of like just using natural fibers and being transparent about the way that clothes are made, and I think educating people on the value of supporting these small brands that at the end of the day are making products in really, really limited batches. And the sort of nourishment, I guess you could say, of giving your money to a person as opposed to like throwing your money at a conglomerate, I think has been something that I've been seeing picking up steam over the last, 4 or 5 years, and seems
Yeah.
to now be bigger than ever. There are more cool independent brands out there than ever before. So I'd like to see that trend continue, because at the end of the day, like I said, I just think it feels way better for me as a shopper to like, whether I'm in New York and going to Event Space and buying something from Slow Boat or any of the independent brands that he carries, or I'm in Los Angeles and shopping at Mohawk and doing the same, or supporting my friend Davide at Gay
Dia.
Cashmere and his
Yeah.
brand. Yeah, like I think that doing that it, like I said, just feels better than just being like, oh, I went to a store and got the discount pants that they made 10,000 of, and I'm going to look like every other guy out there. So
Yeah.
um, that's something that I think has been picking up, and I would like to see continue.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I fancy myself in that group. The downside of me is that I don't have a brick and mortar to present to people like you, who seemingly is a man after my own heart, because I
Mm,
love retail. Like I was raised in this business effectively, like not by my
right.
parents, but like every job I've had has basically been some version of retail or sales or management, up
Yeah,
until
totally.
about 5 years ago, COVID. So yeah, that's interesting. And I'm certainly looking to expand my assortment beyond just the knits and wovens that I have done, but to be
For sure.
continued,
Yeah.
which
Look
will be
forward
good.
to it.
Yeah. I'm curious, like what about clothing inspires you the most? Like why are you here? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this a little bit in the past with stuff. I mean, I think like the reason that I love clothes, and I did from a very, very young age, was like, it really is, comes down to like a costume kind of thing to me. And
Yeah.
and I don't and I think that can have a negative connotation now, like like, oh,
Mm,
you're like playing dress up or something, and that has like an air of inauthenticity to it, because like it's not really you, it's just like this like personality that you're trying to assume. And like I get that, but like the reason that I first got into clothes was because of being a little kid and putting on costumes and getting attention and feeling cool, and putting on a knight in shining armor costume and playing pretend and all this kind of stuff. And I think as an adult, like putting on a great suit that fits awesome, and you put on the shirt and tie, and not because you necessarily like, I have no reason to wear a suit other than going to a wedding in my modern life, but like the
sure.
idea of going in my closet and putting on my Armani jacket and a shirt and tie, because it makes me feel a certain way, and it makes me feel cool, and it makes me feel confident, and So I think that that's a big part of why I love the power of clothing. It's just like, the way that a silhouette of a pair of jeans can change the entire vibe of the outfit and what message you're sending to the world. Like your jeans are skinny, okay, I associate that with like either indie rock in the early 2000s New York, or like punk rock, or like I think about that, or like a wide jean I think about skateboarding, and I think about hip hop in the 90s. And so like there's different signaling that clothing can do. And I think that's really, really fascinating as a human being to know that, like, by putting on a piece of cloth on my body, I can then tell something to the world about myself.
Mm.
um and that beyond that, though, I think what I love about it now is going back to what I was talking about before with the independent designers, is like I I love the creativity behind it. I love the humanity behind clothing, like especially I think in 2026, in our ever more automated world. And obviously lots of clothing parts of the process of actually making clothing are either currently automated or could potentially become automated. But I think that's why I'm so attracted to these small brands too, because there is still like a very, very raw humanity to it that, like, and ultimately at the end of the day, like, as much as AI might be able to eventually like create a pattern for a suit, at the end of the day, like, the suit still has to exist in the physical world,
Yeah.
and it still has to be worn by a human being. So you can't automate like clothing itself at the end of the day.
Right.
And so I think like there's still something that will always be inherently human about fashion in particular. And this doesn't just apply to clothing, but objects in general, like other things that I'm interested in, obviously, cars, watches, stuff that you talk about all the time on the podcast. Like all of these things ultimately like have to be, I mean, although cars, automated driving and Waymo, and that's a whole other topic, but like um at the end of the day, like this sweater that I'm wearing still exists in the physical world. And so I think at a time when things become more and more digitized, more and more in the metaverse, more AI driven, like, going into a store, trying something on, putting it on your body, buying it, walking out of the store is still real life
Yeah.
in some sense.
Yeah. Is that from Davide, that sweater?
This one is, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
this one is, yeah, cashmere, yeah.
I feel like I recognize it. I that sort of like open that sort of open construction, almost not perforated, but like, you know what I mean? It actually,
Yeah, this
I just got a sweater from the row, and it looked like, at first glance I was like, oh wait, is he wearing the same sweater I just bought? But
Yeah, I
it's
think I
not.
think it's a pretty I think it's called shaker stitch is
Yeah.
like the technique. It's just kind of like, yeah, like high low, got these like ridges
Yeah.
running up through it vertically, and they often have like this raglan sleeve design. Like it's a pretty common like shaker stitch sort of construction. But yeah, it's like I love a raglan sleeve sweater. I love a crew neck sweater. I love navy blue. And this
Yeah.
one like hit on so many different levels for me.
Well, it's so funny because I have such sloped shoulders that I can't wear a raglan. It just accentuates the slopey. So like
Okay,
I've
yeah,
got to
yeah.
go with like an inset sleeve. But anyway, that's a me problem. But that was the telltale that we didn't have the same sweater. I was like, oh wait, that's a raglan. Never mind. So like,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
but anyway,
Interesting.
as a style writer, for me, like I'm obsessed with just product. Like I love product, and
Exactly,
I've
yeah.
always been that way. I would presume you would have to be the same as a writer, right? Like, I mean, you can't write about this stuff and not obsess over these kinds of details.
No, I think like that's like, my Substack is sort of an extension of it's a fraction of the amount of time that I actually spend thinking about this stuff, because every, twice a week is just like the stuff that I thought 10 million thoughts about clothes this week, and these are the five that like stuck around and that I wanted to explore deeper. But like, yeah, truthfully, like if I'm not like looking at like brain rot memes on my phone, like I'm looking at clothes or cars or things like that. So like, yeah, today I wrote a post that was basically just like obsessing over like these Orslo jeans that I got, and like I have a pair of 90s Levi's 501s that these Orslo jeans are like trying their darndest to be exactly the same as my 90s Levi's 501s, and comparing them and seeing like how close did they actually get. And that's such a nerdy idea to be like, I'm gonna like literally like put these two pairs of jeans next to each other and like look at the wash up close and like look at the construction details and like measure the inseam and like do all this kind of crazy stuff. But it's just because I'm obsessed with like what are those fine tuned details of products that separate okay pair of jeans from an amazing pair of jeans, or an okay sweater from a great sweater. um and yeah, that just I mean, to not only be doing it today, but to have been doing it pretty much every day for the last 15 years, yeah, I'd say I'm pretty obsessed with it.
Yeah, I mean, in full disclosure for those listening, I am a paying subscriber of Jake's Substack, so please do the same. But it's also, I saw that headline come through my inbox this morning, and it was one of those things where, they're quite literally mirror images of one another, even
Yeah,
down to the
yeah,
name, because aren't they the 105s? So,
correct. So
so
the
the
105s
501s,
versus
right?
the 501. Yeah, exactly. Like Orslo wasn't like trying to be like too slick with
Yeah,
like
they're
their
not cagey.
inspiration.
Yeah, yeah, it's far
Yeah,
from cagey.
yeah. They were just
Um,
trying not to get sued, I think.
yeah, yeah, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Um, what, like, how do you, not mitigate is not the right word. How do you show restraint when it comes to shopping? I mean, just due to the fact that, like, I feel like you and I are obviously cut from the same cloth of like,
Mm.
if we could, we would probably shop even more.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it's a great question that like I don't have a great answer to. Like, how do I show restraint? I mean, uh,
I mean, other than
I
just
mean,
like financially, but like, like,
yeah,
are
sure.
there,
Financially is certainly a way to do it. I also think I also think I'm pretty good about like, I frequently do Alfargo's marketplace where, it's like kind of just like the L's I took or like stuff that I don't really wear anymore. Something I bought 2 months ago and thought was like going to be like a staple of my wardrobe, and just turned out not to be. I think as I get older and the more that I learn about like ultimately like what stuff I'm actually gonna wear and what stuff is just like feels cool in the moment and
Mhm.
like looks cool in the fitting room. I'm getting a little bit better at like shout out to me for like on Sunday going to the Ralph Lauren mansion and like not buying this like purple sweater that I talked about in or purple sweatshirt that I talked about in the newsletter today, like um because and partially this had to do with like my girlfriend being there, and like she's a great voice of reason when it comes to these things, but she just was like you're not gonna wear that, and I'm like, but it's so cool, and she's like, that's great, but you're
Yeah.
not gonna wear it. And like it took me a second, but I ultimately did agree with her that it was like this is a really cool, like separating what I can appreciate from a distance as a cool product and what I'm actually going to wear is something that I'm learning more about as I get older. But is very far from perfected at the current as moment in time. But I think is something that I'm trying to improve upon. Like, and that's just a good example from recently, where it's just like this is a really cool piece. I love the embroidery. I really do love this purple color. But like, look in your closet, Jake. Like, what else? Do you have anything else that's purple? And the answer is no. Like, I
So
just don't. Yeah.
years of retail sales has led me to tell men how to do this scenario
Yeah,
in person.
sure.
And it's basically a function of look in your closet. You either have something in there that's identical, so you should buy it because you know you will wear it, or don't buy it because you have nothing like it. So are you really going to reach for this thing that's unlike anything else? And if the answer is yes, then buy it, right? Like if you
Yeah.
are buying it because you don't own it, that's fair enough. But if
It,
you haven't worn this color before or routinely, let's say, chances are very, very good that you are never going to reach for this purple sweatshirt. But
100%. It's kind of an oxymoron though in a
yeah,
way when you describe it, because it's like are you filling a like am I filling a void? Because well, I don't have a purple sweatshirt in my closet. So in
You
that
kind of
regard,
should buy it, right?
maybe I should, because all
Yeah.
my other hoodies are black and navy blue and gray. So like why not? On the other hand, there's probably a reason that all my sweatshirts are navy blue and gray and black, because those are the ones that I actually like wearing and I think look good with everything else that I own, et cetera, et cetera. So like
Yeah.
um it's definitely like it's definitely tough to know sometimes. And typically like I've been known to like just be like, ah, fuck it. I'm just gonna,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm gonna get it and see what happens. But like I said, the older I get, the more that I'm learning, like, okay, this is not necessarily for me. And I think the next frontier for me is sort of understanding like, okay, well, I have a navy trench coat, but this is like the Armani version, and it's like really, really cool. Like, so do I also need the Armani one, even though I already have a navy trench coat and I have this and I have that? It's like that's the sort of next frontier to me to like show restraint on. So I'll get back to you soon and let you know how that's going.
Yeah, yeah, keep us posted. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's funny because I had this conversation literally this morning with a buddy of mine who's a watch dealer, and we were talking about this conversation as it applies to watches and more namely my collection. And what I will say as a caveat, or not a caveat, but in addition to side note for you, you're a man who's like obviously wise beyond your years because I'm over a decade older than you, and I am now reaching this point. So like
Yeah.
fair enough. But really, it's what I said this morning was because I got offered a watch that I was like keen to understand what it was. So he sent it to me, photos or whatever. And I looked back at him and I was just like, I don't think this is for me, man. Like, 10 years ago, maybe I would have said fuck it. But like today in my current seat, I just told him, I was like, look, man, like as you get older and the more you experience, the more you wear these watches, the more you understand what size works for you, what silhouettes work for you and clothing, your aperture starts to close. And
Yeah,
now
I agree.
it's navy, gray, black, white, for me anyway, namely black, navy,
And
and white. Yeah, yeah.
same, yeah.
And so, I mean, there's a reason these brands keep making navy jackets. There's a reason these brands keep making, black trench coats, or if you're Burberry tan. But, it's an interesting place to be because like admiring something for what it is and knowing that I don't have to own it is such a cool feeling in and of itself. Be like, that's awesome, but I don't need that.
100%, 100%. And like I said, like the this is like a common thread in life, but like the intellect of knowing that and
Mm,
actually practicing it don't
different.
always line
Yeah.
up, are different
Different.
things. But
Yeah.
like intellectually, at least now I have that awareness that I can bring to it. And I
Yeah.
know that like that's the sort of direction that I'm moving in. I just
Yeah.
gotta like I gotta wait for my brain and my wallet to like catch up to
To
that
catch
to
up.
that like yeah, to catch up. Yeah.
What did you study in school? What'd you major in?
Design and management, which is sort of a funky degree that Parsons offers, where
Interesting.
it's kind of yeah, it's a business degree, but it's sort of oriented towards design fields. So like, um, I took art history in college, and I also took economics.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like trying to give you a nice basis of like design knowledge, but then also like a good foundation of like how to operate in a business capacity in those design fields. I mean, I think like the idea behind it would sort of, oh, like if X design company needs like a CEO, like you would be that person, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like I went in a more creative direction as opposed to like a business direction. Um, but yeah, it's kind of just like a funky degree that Parsons offers
Where'd you grow up?
in Connecticut.
Okay, so yeah, so you're right up the street anyway.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What part of Connecticut?
Newtown, Connecticut is actually where I grew up. So it's like 60 miles outside of like north of the city, I guess.
Sure,
So
sure.
Fairfield County still
Yep.
technically, but like if you think of like Greenwich as Fairfield County, it's like an hour away from
Yeah,
Greenwich.
further.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's where my
yeah.
dad's from, actually.
Oh, nice.
Interesting. What did you think of Parsons? Like, did you find because I mean it's a really interesting school given their curriculum.
Yeah, it is interesting. Like the main reason that I went there, I did my first 2 years of school at Temple University in Philadelphia,
Oh,
and then
okay.
I transferred to Parsons. And the big reason behind that was just I just wanted to be in New York, and I wanted to work in fashion, and so I wanted to be associated at a school that was associated with the design world and fashion world, and that to me was the place to be. And also, but really it was just about being in New York. And um so school was kind of just like school to me. But like the second that I touched down in New York, I was like hit the ground running. And that's
That's cool.
actually, my junior start of my junior year is when I started writing for Hypebeast. So like
Oh, really?
it
Okay.
was, yeah, so it was like the second that I got to New York. I mean, I had already done two internships the previous 2 summers, for small brands here in New York.
Hmm.
But that was the beginning of my true like career, was just writing for Hypebeast before class in school. So like the second that started, school sort of took a back seat. And not that like I did pretty good in school actually, but it was just more like I just want to get through this and get out,
Yeah,
so that I can go do the things that I want to do. And
that you
so
want to
like
do. Yeah.
funny enough, like, I actually started a full-time job at Complex for a site, rest in peace, called Four Pins, um, before I even graduated from college. Like I was a full-time Complex employee for the summer, and then that fall, because I transferred, I had to do an extra semester. So I like started as a full-time employee before I graduated, and then like my last semester of college, it was like I literally like would go like a regular employee to the Time Life building three and a
Wow.
half days a week, and then go to class, for a day and a half during the week.
How big of a
So
company was Complex at that time?
pretty big. I mean,
Was
we
it?
we
Okay.
took up the entire 35th floor of the
Oh,
Time
wow.
Life building at the time. Yeah.
Okay.
So this would have been 2013, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on the GQ movements that have happened recently, with Will leaving and such?
Yeah, I think it's cool. It's like now it's like the first time that like, the editor in chief of GQ is like not someone who I either worked for or like worked with or something. So like I'm interested to see Adam, what he does with it. It's always cool. Similarly we talked about like designers and their
Designers, yeah.
different eras and things that they bring. It was like, there was the Jim Nelson era when I was at GQ, and then
Yeah.
after I left, it became the Will Welch era, and now there'll be a new era. And so it'll be interesting to see like what his vision is for the magazine, and how that manifests itself, whether that's in design or content or cover stars. And it's, I mean, being an editor in chief sounds cool. It's like you get to similarly do to a designer at a fashion house, sort of like honor the history of the publication you're at, but also like you're there to bring something new and to excite people and to inspire readers and to, shake it up. So like I'm excited to see what comes next.
Yeah, totally. I've subscribed to the magazine for well over 20 years at this point. And yeah, Jim Nelson era was very much like the time that I started my subscription. So, um
100%. And like, and you even think back and like maybe, at the time it's just GQ, but then you look back and you're like, you look at the design of it and the content of the magazine, and you're like, oh,
mhm.
there's definitely Jim had a vision for it. And then,
Yeah.
Will had a different vision for it. And now there will be a new vision for it as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You seem to have a comfortability, I think, in front of the camera, I would say, for Instagram purposes. Is that something you had to grow into, or would you say it does that come natural? Do you even think about it? Or
I mean, it's
it
funny
drives
people
me
say that
crazy
because
for
it
myself,
does
not for
drive.
you.
No, 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 no. It drives me crazy too. Like I think when you see these videos, like just know, like when you see these videos of me, like standing in my apartment, like even if it's just like, oh, like he's just talking to the camera, whatever, whatever. Like, I'm a person who, if when the camera goes on, if I don't know what I'm gonna say, like I freeze. Like so everything that you see me say is like I literally wrote in a Word document beforehand, and like, and between takes, like going back to the iPad and like looking at it and what am I gonna say in this next line or whatever, whatever. And a 2-minute video of that,
Hmm.
could take 2 hours to do, because I'm fumbling my words. I'm stepping on, words. I'm screwing it up. I get the line right, but I just kind of said it weird, and now I'm in my head about it, and like so like it I the result, I think, I'm pretty good at like being comfortable with it, but there's a lot of like trial and error that goes into it. Having said
Mhm.
that though, like I think just the idea of presenting myself in front of a camera in general, I have a decent amount of comfortability with, and that's just from being like a theater kid as in high school. So
Oh,
like
okay.
being on stage and stuff like that, I was got over that fear. Not over that fear, but like I embraced that fear and walked through that fire at a young age.
You're
So
just running lines.
that's literally what I'm doing now when I do these videos. Is just like write it out, know exactly what you're gonna say, memorize it, and then just say it to the best of your ability and try and make it sound natural. And
Yeah.
and um the green screen stuff has been a lot easier because CapCut just has a teleprompter feature, so I don't have to remember anything. I just read off the teleprompter. So
Oh,
shout out
sick.
to CapCut for that.
Yeah, nice. Do you feel fashion's gotten too expensive? Because I remember, like, speaking of the Jim Nelson era, I remember reading the magazines and seeing shoes for like 5.95, and I was like, in my early
Yeah, you're like,
20s,
whoa,
and I'm like,
yeah,
oh my God, $600 for loafers. Like, are you kidding
yeah,
me? Like, or
yeah.
5.95? Yeah, okay, but like, how much better could these Italian shoes be than, these Kenneth Coles made in China or whatever? Or like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like,
totally.
no shots at Kenneth Cole. You caught a stray, but like,
Yeah, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, it's an interesting question because I could actually have the inverse take, which is that clothes are too cheap. And I see both sides of it. Like on the
across the
one
board, you're
hand,
saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that what you're talking about is the sort of designer level. And like, there have been some Instagram videos I've seen recently that have been really interesting where it's like a Gucci flip-flop in 2019 was 395. And then in 2020 it was 450. And then in 2023 they raised the price to 650. And now that same pair of Gucci flip-flops from 7 years ago went from 395 to like $900.
Is that
And I
right?
think like
Wow.
100%. And you see it across multiple categories, like where a pair of, Gucci, even like Gucci 1953, their classic horsebit loafer. I think I bought a pair in like right when Alessandro Michele started at Gucci. So this would have been 2015, and they were like six,
6.95?
I think 660.
Okay.
I believe
They were
on Mr. Porter.
4.95 when I worked for Gucci for 2 years. I was a manager at San Diego. And
And
I think
now
I think they were
and now they're
5.95.
like, yeah, and now they're 1100, you know?
Wow.
And so like I think on that side of things, like yeah, like there's been this crazy inflation just of luxury goods where, a t-shirt, now from the row is $900. And it's just like there's some obscene things happening on that front.
Yeah.
Um, but then when you think about like like a small independent brand just like trying to make a pair of shoes, like the cost of labor has gone up as well, and the cost of the raw materials has gone up, and then there's import duties and fees and all this kind of stuff. And so like those things seem to be, um even if they're really expensive, seem to be like honorably priced, maybe would be the word to describe it. Like they have integrity behind that price
Sure.
because it just is they just cost what they have to based
Right.
on the amount that it costs the designer to just like manufacture that good, and they're trying to manufacture it the right way and
Hmm.
pay people a living wage and all this kind of stuff. And then so to my earlier point about like I can make the inverse take that clothes are too cheap.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a store and a hoodie costs $29, like you have to be aware that like somewhere along the line someone got screwed over.
Yeah, there's blood
Like
in the water. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
someone didn't get paid somewhere because like to make a hoodie you have to like farm cotton and then turn that cotton into thread, and then like then that cotton has to be sent to a facility and like and turn into fabric, and then that fabric has to go to another place and has to be stitched together into a hoodie, and that person who did the stitching has to get paid, and the farmer has to get paid, and the truck driver who drove it from A to B has to get paid, and then the person who ultimately works in the store has to, like there are so many so many people's lives that are touching this one hoodie that if it's ultimately $29 at the end of the day, like someone got exploited along the way. And
Hmm.
so like I think that that's a problem too at the same time that like yes, it's a problem that Gucci loafers went from $600 to $1,100 in the course of 3 years. Similarly, like it doesn't feel great that we also live in a world where like there is such cheap clothing that that people are being exploited to make those garments. Having said that though, like what I want to be super clear is like it's not the consumer's fault at the end of the day that a $29 hoodie is what they can afford. Like that's a
Right,
whole other
right,
can
right,
of
right, right.
economic worms, of like yeah, that they're buying a $29 hoodie because they don't make enough money to buy the $200 hoodie. So like no harm, no foul on their part. But the fact that like that product exists and has to exist in our current like world we live in, I think is equally as much of a problem as like the $1,100 loafers at the end of the day.
Yeah, fair. Given the
So
sort of, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's just like so yeah, like they're I think it's both things are true. Clothes are
Yeah,
too expensive and clothes are too cheap at the same time.
yeah, no, I agree, and well said. Is contemporary dead?
What would you define as contemporary? Like a
Banana
higher
Republic,
legacy?
J.
Oh,
Crew,
okay.
like modern contemporary, or at least that's what they used to be considered, right? Like they weren't designer, but they weren't Walmart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, it is interesting, and like it's this kind of like thing that I've been like toying with for a few years now of like kind of similarly to what I was just talking about. Like you have these like diverging paths of like really, really expensive and really, really cheap kind of models like wealth inequality in a lot of ways. Like, so this like middle class of brands is kind of lost in the
Hmm.
middle, and I would have to check in. I think J. Crew's privately owned now, so it's like you can't really check in on like how they're doing. But at the same time, like if you consider, I don't know, like what do you consider like Abercrombie or something like that? Because they seem to be doing pretty well as far as like finances go. And then meanwhile, like Ralph Lauren is like probably the king of contemporary and is crushing it over the like stock price wise seems to be crushing it. Um,
Is it true that
so it's
Double RL doesn't make that much money for the company? That's just like his pet project. That's what I've heard.
probably I would say like the vast majority of that of the dollars through that are like going through Polo,
Polo. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then Purple Label is just like to stay relevant with like the designer set, and then Double RL, yeah, I think is like probably pretty small quantities compared to the stuff that they're doing with Polo. I do think if those brands are having a tough time, and like if Banana Republic is like having a tough time finding customers, then it's probably just because those customers don't exist. Like
Yeah.
there are people who can afford, like I said, the $29 hoodie, and then there's a whole other class of person who can afford the $2,900 hoodie and would rather spend that and have the show of wealth,
Hmm.
and this sort of $129 hoodie that's in the middle is kind of caught in no man's land in terms of finding a customer, because it's not a flex to own a Banana Republic hoodie, you know and it also is like more expensive than you might spend at its brother Gap. And having said that, like I have a Gap hoodie that was like $39 on sale, and
It's epic.
it rocks. It
Yeah,
rocks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Your collab loafers.
Yeah.
Let's talk about them. Let's share them. Like,
Oh,
why'd
sure.
you do it? What are they? How are they different? All that good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So I'm glad that I could talk about them. Yeah, so I've been friends with Matt Chevlard from Blue Scarpa for a long time. He was the founder of a brand called Del Toro before he started Blue Scarpa. Um, and him and I have just been chatting. Oh, and he's been, a big supporter of mine and in my content and everything. And I've been a supporter of his. I've got a pair of loafers for him for the first time maybe about 4 years ago, and I wore them to death, and they were great. And so, it was really just like him out of nowhere, just kind of being like, hey, like, would you want to do something together? And me having, written about shoes probably more than any other category that I've ever than anything, when I was at GQ, I did sneaker of the week. And was just always thinking about shoes, and to this day, like it's probably my favorite clothing category, other than like I would say like shoes one, jeans two. Um, it just was like, yeah, like let's do it. And so, he has this style that's called that like I said, I got a pair 4 years ago. I wore them to death. And it's just a classic penny loafer. It's like the platonic idea of a penny loafer. Like there's nothing funky going on with like the shape. It's got the beef roll construction. It's, the vamp is like not too stubby, it's not too pointy, it's not too wide, it's not trying to be too fashionable or too slick or too anything. It's just like the simplest form of a penny loafer. And so it really was just like, okay, so you've already nailed it with this style called the college loafer. How can we, do something that's different that you haven't done before? And, he does a croc skin, but he does it in blue. Like blue is obviously the defining trait of the brand. It's called Blue Scarpa. Every shoe, is done in a million shades of blue, but he never actually did like a true black croc.
Hmm.
And so, like, what was the better opportunity than this to just do like pure, genuine croc skin? And the one that he does on his website has a rubber sole just for comfort. But I was like, I like the leather sole better.
Yeah.
It feels a little more dressy. It feels a little bit more proper. It honors the croc skin, and the sort of fanciness of that. So let's do a black croc skin. But then knowing that like the black croc skin loafer is really, really, really expensive, and
Yeah, I
then
was
and
gonna
to go back to
ask.
our
Yeah.
earlier point about like it just is what it costs to make these shoes, and they're $4,350 is the retail price on these, and that just is what it costs to make them. Like it's a really fair price.
Sure.
And then so we're like, okay, just knowing that like that's a very narrow group of people who can afford
Yeah.
that shoe, let's make like a regular one. And for years I've had a pair of like made in US GH Bass loafers that are in this burgundy color,
Totally.
classic burgundy penny loafer style. But the issue with them and a lot of GH Bass loafers is just like the leather is really stiff, not super comfortable. Like even though the pair that I have is like 30 years old, like the toe box is pretty small and the leather is still pretty stiff, even though it's more comfortable than like if I just got them fresh out of the box. So
Hmm.
it's like, how do we take this beautiful burgundy loafer idea and just like soften it up a
Yeah,
little
make
bit?
it supple. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, basically the way that that's achieved, like to get a little nerdy on it, is just like, the way that you get that sort of high shine near patent leather is like by polishing them over and over and over and over again. And so basically we just didn't polish them as much, but it still is that like brownish burgundy-ish leather.
Yeah.
And so what you're left with is a shoe that in certain light looks dark brown, in direct sunlight you can really see the burgundy color of it, but the leather itself is really, really soft and supple and feels comfortable right out of the box. And so I think, what we've achieved is this classic penny loafer style, this classic American penny loafer color with this burgundy leather, but just with like modern comfort, and suppleness that makes them ultimately like a shoe that I would want to I would want to and could wear sockless day one out of the box and like not destroy my feet. And so like that was the idea behind those. Those will be $530, I believe. Um, again, made in Italy, Blake Stitch construction. I know like shoe nerds out there be like, why aren't they Goodyear welted? Why aren't they Goodyear welted? Goodyear welting is great. It makes shoes a lot heavier. I wanted a shoe that, and Matt agreed, like there's an Italian sensibility to the brand. The shoes are made in Italy. It just made more sense to just do Blake stitch, which is stitching the upper directly to the sole itself. You're losing that welt in between, but it just makes for a lighter, more comfortable right out of the box shoe and not as heavy. So like these are really like it's supposed to be like a year-round um style that again, like at the end of the day, is just like the what Matt and I would consider to be like the perfect idea of a penny loafer. And I think we did a pretty good job. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited about them.
That sounds awesome. They sound incredibly versatile as well from a color perspective. How would you say you reconcile whether or not you wear them like every day? Because like I have this problem with my own brand of like I'm obsessed with clothes. I'm obsessed with
Yeah.
product. I can't, Standard H doesn't make everything, clearly. So
Yeah.
like a lot of days I'm not wearing anything but like usually I'm in a t-shirt that I make like because it's
Yeah.
layered or whatever like under a sweater, you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But like it is kind of one of these things that I struggle with leaving the house from time to time, not every day, but like I'm like God, I should really be wearing this hat. Like I've been wearing this hat less and less because like I'm just like
You don't want to
granted,
be the guy who just only wears his own stuff. Yeah.
well, there's that, yeah, but then there's also like the like self-conscious nature of like, yeah, but I should be promoting my brand, you know, like and so like
Totally. Well, I
I
think for me, this is the first time that I've ever had a product with my name on it,
and
really.
it's
So,
new, yeah, so
and
it's
it's new, so like it's exciting to wear, and it's
yeah,
really, really,
yeah.
really, really cool. So like, I mean, I have to check back because like I actually have a few more collaborations coming down the pike
Oh,
this
sweet.
year that I'm
Nice.
excited about. One of which will be in June, and then one of which will be in the fall, and all with different brands.
Great.
So like I'll be interested to see like how much of my own stuff that I end up wearing by year's end.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, like yeah, like I'm just like, man, these loafers are really, really cool. And it's particularly the Croc skin ones because I'm like, these are just baller, you know,
Yeah,
like
yeah, they
it's a
sound sick.
$4,000 pair of shoes. They're incredible. Like I want to wear them a lot. So
Yeah.
um yeah, I'm just stoked right now. And so whether it's the black Croc or the burgundy calfskin leather, like I'm gonna be wearing these a lot for the foreseeable future for sure.
That's awesome. You're usually
Yeah.
wearing a green dial Rolex. What's on your wrist today? It looks like a
This is
vintage
actually, yeah, this is a vintage Gruen Curve X
Gruen.
that,
Okay.
yeah, that I actually got from Davide on his website.
Oh, funny.
Because every once in a while, Davide on Giai's website, like he'll curate different objects and stuff. And I actually saw this watch for the first time when I was at the store.
Yeah.
So I got to try it on in person. He had this one. He had like this cool, I don't even know what brand, 27 millimeter, like, kind of like flag design on the dial, really cool thing. And then he had like this Ralph Lauren watch. I really have been after for a while now, like a dress watch, because obviously I usually wear the mint green date just that I got a few years ago. And so I was like, okay, this is like the more sporty watch. I want the dress watch to complement it.
Yeah.
Been after it for years. Obviously, like I would love a Breguet numeral Patek 96. That would be awesome. I don't
100%.
have a hundred. I don't have $100,000 on
I
a watch
recorded
right
with
now.
Mike Nouveau this morning and we were talking about that very watch.
Well, and Mike is the one who like put me on to the Breguet numeral 96, and I'm sure he has one that he'd love to sell me. He'd love to
So
take my
sick.
money.
Yeah.
But I'm just not in a position right now to do that. Even some of like the Movado ones that are like similar in that category, like can still be 15, $20,000.
Sure.
This one was around $1,000, and so I was like, okay, that seems more in my zone right now. It still has the Breguet numerals, still a dress watch. It's square shaped, and just the curved design of it, I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Having gotten more into the history of stuff recently, like Movado sort of inventing that like three stepped curve movement back whenever it was the 20s or whatever. So just really liking the curve case design and the Breguet numerals, and so sort of fit the bill for everything I was looking for at a price that I found to be digestible right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like was really,
Approachable.
really hyped on this one. Yeah.
So I heard you once say like the only thing you love more than fashion or as much as fashion is cars. And that was I think the
Yeah.
day that I reached out to you is whatever day
Okay.
that
Yeah.
was. Um so tell me what was the first car? Do you have a current car now that you're in the city or what's the car
No, I
story?
don't. I don't have a
Yeah.
car.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
My girlfriend has a car through her job, which is awesome because it means that like just from the pure transportation perspective, like we're able to drive up to like my folks' house in Connecticut and
Nice.
take day trips somewhere, or like she can, if we have things to schlep to the storage unit or whatever, it makes it easy. But no current car.
Storage unit.
Um,
I get
but
it.
yeah, for sure. Which I was just at last night, and like I kind of gives me anxiety when I'm in there because I'm like, oh my God, like I don't even want the. I don't. You actually realize as a tangent, like you realize when you have a storage unit, it kind of is like a nice purgatory for some of the clothes you want to get rid of. Because like I went in there and I was like, oh, I don't even remember owning this shit. Like I really don't need this stuff. So like it kind of was freeing in that regard to be like Oh yeah, I can like get rid of a lot of the stuff that just was in a storage unit.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
but, for me, like when I was a kid, like I loved um probably one of the first cars I fell in love with was like a 90s Dodge Viper.
Oh
Just
yeah,
thought that that
sure.
was like this was the sickest thing in the whole world, like with the like red with white racing stripes and like
Yeah.
just I didn't know at the time like that it had a psychotic V10 engine in it or
Spin
like all
out in
this.
third gear. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like that it was like a true Widowmaker, but I just thought it was like the coolest thing. And then I had a poster on my wall that like had, it was like one of those posters where like you got your name on the license plate kind of thing. And I
Yeah.
think it was like a Porsche 944 that just said like Wolf on the license plate.
Sick.
Um, so I had that poster in my room all as a kid. So obviously like the Porsche 944 I always thought was cool with like the pop-up headlights.
Yeah.
And then the Dodge Viper. Those were like the two cars that when I was young I fell in love with. My first car itself was a 96 Explorer Eddie Bauer edition,
Oh,
which
amazing.
I thought was like cool at the time. I thought was fun and cool, and like now to this day, I think is like a fun and cool first car to have.
Totally.
Um, was so slow. It was terrible on gas. I remember like trying to pass someone once and like almost dying because it just like did not. It was like it was a V8 that was like 4.7 liter V8 that had like 180 horsepower or
Right.
160 horsepower. It was terrible. Um, but it was just like a fun, cool black with gold accent thing. And like I've been talking to people at car companies recently who I've told them about that first car, and they were like, yeah, like if we were to do something like that, like what should we do? Like would it be uh like what company would they pot now that Eddie Bauer itself has gone under, like what who could they partner with kind of thing? And I just think that it was like such a cool idea for Ford
Wow.
back in the day to just like collaborate with a clothing brand to make a car was like a fun idea.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, to go back to your initial point, like yes, I do in fact like if there's anything I love more than clothes, it would be cars for sure.
What do you have your eye on recently?
Oh, I mean, what don't I? I mean, like like
What's
I
that?
just I
What's the
just go I
algorithm got you on?
well, the algorithm these days has me all over the place. Like, I love everything. So like, I'll get fed like R34 GTRs. But
Mhm.
then also like I will say like my taste is very much of the era I grew up in, which is 90s and early aughts is like my zone.
It's the best years of
Um,
cars, really.
yes, like the last gasp of like analog cars.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're
So
talking
like
like
dream,
60s Italians or something, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, yeah, just like the idea of like my dream car would be like a 993, the
yeah.
bad boy spec 4S, like black. I think Kendall Jenner has one, and like I've seen videos of her on my algorithm driving around it, and I'm like, damn, like she's got like the dream car.
Yep. Yes, I know those photos.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like that would be the dream for sure. Would be 993 black. I think the 4S is cool because it has like the turbo wheels on it, so you can't really tell unless you look at the back that it's not a turbo.
Right.
Um, but yeah, that's just perfect to me. And
Yeah.
then also like 550 Maranello,
Sure.
um, probably the all-time grail. Like I would say my taste is very, very aligned with like someone like Doug DeMuro, just because we're like similar aged, and he
Yeah.
just happens to be living the dream that I wish because he has a 993 and a Carrera GT, and
Yeah.
he's had like a G-Wagon Cabriolet in the past, and he's so all the cars that Doug has are like things that I would love to own one day too if I can get there.
Yeah, he's driving the hell out of that Arena Red 993, which I'd love to see it. It's
Uh,
great.
is that's like it's like a burgundy color, right?
Yeah, that was the launch
Yeah,
color. He's famous for buying cars in the launch color.
in the
So
launch color. Yeah,
it's almost
exactly.
like not even, he doesn't even have a choice anymore. He just like, if he wants that car, it has to be that color because that's the launch color. That's
Totally.
literally how he buys his cars, which I think is just fascinating and great. I don't know anybody that shops that way, frankly. But
Yeah, like
that's just sick.
whatever was in the advertisement is the one he has to have.
Yeah, you tell me
Yeah.
what color to buy. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
totally.
great.
Yeah.
I'll do that. Jake, I appreciate your time, dude. This has been super fun for me to get to know you a little bit better. And I've been a fan, as I said, subscribing to the Substack. And
Thank you.
yeah, you kind of inspired my Substack in a certain way. But yeah, I
Oh,
appreciate your
thank you.
time. If you have any questions for me or want to promote anything else, go ahead, let's knock it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say like, yeah, the shoe, I don't know when this podcast comes out, but the shoe will be available to paid subscribers on Friday, April 10th. Um,
Cool.
and then we'll do a general release sometime in the next couple. I honestly don't know exactly when, but I have a
Sweet.
call right after this to discuss actually the timing of everything.
Oh, cool.
But and then yeah, so if you want the loafers, you can subscribe to the Substack and get early access to them. Or
Nice.
just if you want to read more content from me, just check it out. But I really appreciate your time as well. I appreciate you having me on, and
Yeah,
this was a lot of
100%.
fun. So
Awesome.
thank you.
Yeah, buddy. Great. Well, yeah, we'll catch up soon for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you soon.